Okay, it looks as though we are online and going. I'm going to share the screen, and we should be sharing it shortly. Okay. Let's go over to. Okay. We're up and going with our college prep English class. This is our second meeting. It's September 18th. And we meet on Thursday afternoon, but all week online. And you folks have managed to get online, and that's wonderful. I'd like to assign, please, for you all to get an opportunity to log into the classroom and post something. Now, the main things that I'd like you to post in the classroom, let's look at the classroom itself. This is where you end up when you log into the classroom. The main things I'd like you to post in would be the Writers Forum. Oh, where is it? Writers Forum, right there. You can go into the Writers Forum. Posting is easy. Just add a topic at the top there. And then post any writing that you are doing. And that's what I will do, is follow up with a response to your posting. And so it creates a thread on that original posting with commentary on what you've done, corrections, and credit. Okay, and the other place I'd like you to post is in the vocabulary, and you've already found that. The vocabulary journals right here. Now, both of these have been posted at various times in our agenda, so it should be easy to find them. But under vocabulary journals, that's just where you would put unfamiliar vocabulary anytime you encounter it, whether it's something that has been assigned, something you're reading elsewhere, or something that you received, for example, in an agenda or set of notes for the class. You want to take note of that, look things up, and keep this vocabulary journal. I didn't really take you into the vocabulary journals last time. If things load fast enough, I'm going to try that right now, just so that you get a concept. It's getting slower and slower. There we go. Still working well enough, though. Well, at least half the screen is working well enough. Okay, this is where what you would click on in order to add a new discussion topic. I'm not sure why the rest of the forum is not there. I would like to scroll down, but I haven't got a scroll bar yet.
We have a scroll wheel, the mouse.
That's right, this mouse does have one. Yeah. Okay, so Kyle just posted something. Diana, our invisible student who is joining us this semester, has been working during the summer. And I haven't posted anything for some time, but I try to make a point of posting material from time to time. I come across words that I want to put down and note. I invite anyone who's interested to come and visit this listing. It's probably not particularly useful stuff. It's not interesting how it's decided just to make things appear only when you're looking at them, only when you're pointing at them. Anyway, this is a list of words that I've come across at one time or another and just felt that I needed to put them up. And so feel free to look at the vocabulary journals of anyone else in the class. Things are not moving as nicely as it would be nice if they were. I'm going to try closing these things in hopes that that will improve the response time of this one, and indeed it did. Okay. Okay, so let's go to our agenda. Where is our agenda? Well, okay, there's the main class. Sometimes I open those two first. Our splash page.
It's that one.
And yeah, this is the agenda. That's right. I just happen to be way down in it. Okay, this is what you should all have received. And I try to put these together in preparation for each class. We'll have an agenda of some sort. But as I've tried to explain before, the agenda is a starting point. The agenda is what we will cover if nothing more interesting arises. So bring interesting things, especially if the agenda doesn't inspire you particularly. Give me something else that we can work with. Okay, second meeting, college prep English class, and here I've added more links than I had before, simply to make sure that everyone would be able to access the class feed either in real time right now, and it doesn't look as though we have anyone online right now, or in retrospect by looking at that feed posted on YouTube, where they're all going to be. Note, however, that the class feed, we don't have a camera in the class, so it's just an auditory record together with the screen capture of what we're looking at, which of course is much more useful than looking at our talking heads. So here's the Google Plus event page. That's where you would go if you were working online and you wanted to work directly with it. The YouTube feed, so that it has a bit of a delay in it, and that YouTube feed is mirrored in here. This is, no, it isn't. This is just a picture of one. But in our online classroom, right there, you'll find the YouTube feed is embedded in the online classroom, or the online theater. Okay, I'm going to ignore all of those. I just wanted to make sure they were up there for anybody who wanted to look at. And here is our agenda. And a thank you to all who have already posted in the Writers Forum of vocabulary journals. I saw some postings there. I'd like to make sure that everybody gets a chance to post by next time. Class planning. So there's always a plan. Class direction is protean and opportunistic in that we will explore any avenue that seems not there's a typo in there, that seems fruitful for all, as long as we do it in formal English. However, some planning is indicated in order to allow for some needed preparation. Let's brainstorm. If we go off into some entirely unprepared direction, I'm not as likely to have material ready for you and prepared, so but a little bit of preparation is sort of nice. One of the big questions here is how much homework is enough? And let's look at the homework that I've given you for this week. And I'm going to jump down to that now, as a matter of fact. And we'll take a look. All right, here are the high priority assignments. And this is important. Note, these assignments should be enjoyable. Do only as much as you find enjoyable. If you find them to be onerous and pointless, please help shape future assignments with your suggestions. This is terribly optimistic, isn't it? So many other teachers say you've got to force them to do it. I'm sorry, that's the kind of school I went through. I don't want to inflict that on anybody else. But we have a fascinating subject and all kinds of wonderful things to cover. And I'd like to make sure that they are as enjoyable as possible. And please help me with that. On the other hand, I have lots of homework. Here are the college admission essays. There were a few in the classroom. They weren't very good, and I'm not necessarily even endorsing them in any sense. Then I've created this new classroom page of examples of successful essays. That's the one we just looked at briefly, and we'll be back to that in a moment. And these are from this book, Essays That Worked, edited by Whitcomb Curry, and the ISBN number. It's a link that will take you to Amazon. I don't think they have it here in the EIE in the EIE bookstore, but this is the book I'm talking. You can get it on Amazon for about $2 plus postage or something like that. I really enjoyed it because it is so nicely. They are good. There's no question about that. And they're good in exactly the way that we are, in the respects that we're working on in this class. Now, I did assign this Dr. Perlman essay on the SAT exam. Have you read that?
Yes.
Yes. What did you think?
That was kind of funny how they don't really care in the sense of more of what would be a good example. Like they tend to not focus on your vocabulary. They just look at the word count on the page. I was thinking it's hilarious because you're being assigned for an essay, but to just look at your word count.
That's exactly
the size of it.
Just look at the word count. Mind you, if you started doing utter dribble in it, you might be caught up on that. It's hard to know how much of it they're actually going to look at. The first paragraph should certainly say something that bears upon the prompt you've been given. Otherwise, it can be accused of being irrelevant and perhaps pre-prepared, but it has to address the prompt. It doesn't necessarily have to say anything cogent or compelling about the prompt, but it has to mention it. And then, theoretically, 5-paragraph essay and the last paragraph should tie into your initial premise. What you flesh it out with, however, really doesn't seem to matter on the SAT at all, as long as you have plenty of words. And that word count is 90% of your test score, according to Dr. Perlman. It was 90%, wasn't it? Somewhere, something like that. Yeah. Okay, so if you haven't already read this, read it if you feel like it, but Raquel, don't bother. You now know what it says. Okay. For the SAT essay, this is not essay writing. This is not good essay writing, the kind of essay that Dawson is looking at writing, and I expect the rest of you will be as well. Okay, I asked whether there was interest in debate, and there did seem to be interest in debate, but no specific topics emerged. Whenever I ask for specific topics, please go ahead and post something. You can post in the open forum, you can post in the writers forum if you feel like. Send something up there, and we'll put it on the agenda for the following week. But debate is one of the best ways to practice one's language from both angles, both scripted and improvisatory. You go up there with a script to present your argument, but then you have to respond to your opponent based on what you've just heard your opponent say. So it has to be improvisatory as well. It's a wonderful exercise, it's wonderful practice for language acquisition. And I gave you some examples here. I'd like to look into the debate topics, by the way, and I think we could discuss those here in class a little bit. Did you get a chance to look at these?
Yeah. Yes.
Good, good. What did you think?
The way when I watched it, I forget the names. The first one that came up, the one that eventually won, he was definitely better at speaking, but I felt like the other person was much better at debating, doing the counterpoints. Mm-hmm. But the problem with him is he stuttered a lot. Like he would stop speaking, or he would be saying one sentence and then he would stop immediately and then say a completely different sentence.
Yes, we want to work on fluidity and cohesion when speaking. And this is something that comes with practice. We also want to avoid the word like, if at all possible. It simply lowers the tone, it lowers the formality of everything we're doing to punctuate what we're saying with like. On the other hand, I don't want to intimidate anybody, so speak normally, but think about things like that. Yeah, cohesion is very important. And concinnity. Everybody got your dictionaries handy? Okay. I did suggest this. This was
That's right.
this was in the class introduction. Yeah, we want to be able to look things up instantly, and of course that means paper dictionaries. This is perfect. This is perfect. This is exactly what you want. Have a dictionary handy somewhere. There's an app you can pop in there somewhere. Consinity. Let's just. You've all got paper on your out there. It's CONCINNITY. Let's look for that one. It's a very important. It's a very good word. Notice in some of these essays that we're going to take a look at, there's real vocabulary being used. The kind of vocabulary that has been jettisoned from the SAT because it's no longer used very much, quote, quote, which is utterly absurd. The SAT has, in fact, reduced its vocabulary expectations. But you're still going to find that those words are used in literature, they're used in academia, they're going to be used in scholarly writing. It's absurd to omit them. And so, well, we're going to look at words and understand their power. Okay, so let's come back and we're going to look at the debate topics. The high school debate contest, these chaps were good. I thought they did a fine job. As much as anything else, I felt the judge's commentary afterwards on what was and was not well presented was also very, very useful for our purposes. Now, that was a high school debate, and you listen to those kids. I'll bet you there were some words down there that you had not heard before. Make a note of those. Okay, now this one is on a somewhat higher level. Where did this take place?
What, the whistleblower debate?
Yep.
Oxford.
The Oxford University Union, yes, and they had some of the best speakers in the world. In the Oxford debates, they have members of parliament, even prime ministers speaking there, and they're absolutely exquisite language in many cases. And so it's just a wonderful source, and they're having Oxford debates on a regular basis. This, however, tends sometimes to be on a significantly higher level than you'll find in high school debates, but not always, because some of the people speaking are politicians. And if anything, politicians tend not to be much higher than the level of the constituency.
Because they would probably want everyone to understand them.
That's true, but on the other hand, there are different ways to address your audience. And in some ways,
especially in Oxford debate,
you will find people who simply wield their language superbly, and it makes such an immense difference. It's extremely effective. So this was just one little debate here, and there were a number of Americans and a number of Brits in this debate. I didn't watch it this week. I wanted to. I didn't have time. I've seen it before, of course. What did you think of the positions presented?
This was the one with Snowden, right?
Yeah.
For me, I personally believe that Snowden was a traitor because he takes an oath not to disclose any information, and
It's an interesting point.
But then people always go on the counterpoint, but because the information was, kind of. I'm trying to think of the best word for it,
they thought it was unconstitutional. So then the question raises, well then, is he considered a hero for releasing information that is, unconstitutional? But then another question raises from that saying, well, who judges that? And then that's the whole debate. Everyone debates whether he was a hero doing that or he betrayed our nation because he released it.
Very good points. Those were all brought up well. One of the interesting points that was brought up was, though I'm not sure it was brought up in this one, it may have been brought up elsewhere, was the oath, certainly, that would have been taken by Snowden and indeed by the President of the United States. The oath is to the Constitution. There's no actual oath to the effect that one would not release information that falls into a different category, especially if you're not working directly for the government. You're working for a contractor, apparently. So it's the oath that was taken was to the Constitution, and so that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Most people who work for governments, like soldiers or such, would have to take they have to pass like a national security clearance.
Yeah.
Like, saying, all right, if you're going to be given classified, depends, there's like different levels of like classification. Some are very top secret, others are like lower, and then.
See if you can avoid the likes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and indeed, he had top security clearance. Snowden did. Okay. I'd like to find more debates, and I'd like to find debates that are interesting to everyone here. So I open that up, look around, see what you can find, send me links if you do find something that you would like to look at further. But as much as anything else, I really like listening to people who can put their points well, regardless of which side of the issue they managed to do that on. And perhaps we want to look at some different issues. One of the problems is with the whistleblower debate, and for that matter with the high school debate, one needs to do a good deal of research to know what's going on there, so we know what we're talking about. And I'm not sure I want to inflict that upon you, because that sort of just distracts us from our purpose of using language, though, of course, research is part of what we'd like to accomplish in here. What was the purpose of the high school debate? What was the premise, the topic?
It was about should America join in the International Criminal Court, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or should we act on our own ground and judge them ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying whether the whole world should have one universal law to judge criminals, or people can do it, countries can do it the way they want.
Mm-hmm.
And then forget who took up the point on the other side. One of them was it was the Indian guy
Mm-hmm.
was the one who's defending it, and then the Asian guy was the one giving counterpoint saying why we shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
It was very interesting, though, I thought.
I thought it was very professional, too. They knew exactly what they were doing. You'll find that a lot of the other debates,
It seems more
especially the
hostile.
yeah,
Yeah.
they become more hostile and less polite.
They just
And
start cutting
indeed-
each other off.
Right, and they not only cut each other off, but very often resort to ad hominem accusations. What does that mean?
That's like it's when you're just saying something fake. Like, imagine two people are arguing, and then you're arguing about facts, and someone says, "You're stupid."
Right.
You
Ad
differ.
hominem.
Yeah,
It's an attack on the person
rather than his point.
rather than a cogent development of the theme. And of course, that's what we'd like to see. One of my favorite debaters, I'm afraid, resorts to that all too often. But we will come across that later on. Okay, I asked you, if you would, to read the first chapter of the book. And I expect you have. By the way, do you know what where the book is? You have it. Wonderful. Okay. This book, I think it's very useful because it covers all of the major errors that students tend to have with papers and grammar in general. However, I don't like to dwell upon it because I think that we're better off learning how to correct those errors and how to overcome them through an intuitive, innate process of listening and imitating rather than studying them in theory. Nice to know what they are in theory. It gives us vocabulary for talking about them, and we can describe what the problem is. That's not necessarily where the language is going to come from when you sit down with a keyboard in front of you. Then you want it just to flow out of your head.
It's like learning. It's like when you learn a new language, you don't just learn the theory; you have to listen to it.
Exactly.
Just like in English.
Exactly. And indeed, of course, we've all learned English without putting a great deal of effort into it. If you understand what I mean. It just comes. Now, the argument is that you've got this window of peak language acquisition. So from the time a little before you're 1 year old until you're about 3. And I remember when my daughter started speaking words, got out paper and started writing them down. By the second week, we were so swamped, couldn't keep up with it. It's just amazing what happens. I don't think we lose that entirely. We do suppress it when we use too much cognition, for example, when thinking
Yeah, when you
about
think
language.
about it much, like, oh, well, I actually said like, but when I was learning Spanish, I realized when I first started, I tried to refer to everything as English. So I said, okay, this means this in English. Then I realized that's not the best way to learn it, because I was thinking too much of, okay, I'll just convert this to English, and then I would pronounce it and say the words the way I would think of it as an English structured sentence.
Mhm.
But that's not how it works.
Exactly. You want to think in the language that you're acquiring. I just can't get over really the way to express themselves in these. Of course, these are the best in the country, I think. But we can look at the commonality between these different essays and understand what it is they're looking for. One of the things I notice in there is they're grammatical errors. They're mechanical errors. And I think that's almost requisite. I think it's a good idea to throw something in. It means that it wasn't written by an editor. It wasn't written by a professional. That reader can tell the difference. And there are wonderful references to things. Well, we'll hit that as we go on later on. Okay, so in this first chapter, I'm sure you've written down some of the vocabulary that you encountered and with which you were previously unfamiliar. What words did you see that sprang out at you? Raquel, did you get the message about the first chapter?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. But did you receive the agenda?
This
Mayla?
morning I saw it. I
Okay,
got
but
an
you
email.
did see this?
Yeah.
Good. I just want to make sure you're getting it. Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the book unless you have questions about it. If there's anything that you have, any questions you have about it, by all means bring them up and we will address them. But otherwise, I'll simply say read it. Dawson's read it already, so do what you like at that time. Okay, the class orientation page we looked at last week. Did anybody have any questions on it? Okay. Okay, I threw this one in because I think this is, I'm afraid this is perhaps a terribly optimistic, maybe even Pollyanna-ish approach to class, and my colleagues might take issue with it. But my theory is we're all on the same page in this class. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that we all have the same goal. The way I've usually regarded it in traditional classrooms, that includes at university, is we're not here to learn, we're here to get a degree. They're not here to teach us, they're here to put obstacles in our path. I'm afraid in so many respects that's an accurate conclusion to come to. However, I don't want to do it that way. My intent here is a fascinating subject. I enjoy it immensely. I want you to enjoy it immensely. If you enjoy it, you're going to jump into it and appreciate it. And you'll accomplish so much more that way than if you're expected to slog through distasteful hours of trying to acquire some piece of knowledge. Okay, the subject's fascinating. We need to keep it fascinating. If the class degenerates into a quotidian struggle to fulfill requirements for credit and grades, we have lost the battle and are no better than public school. This class is flexible and can adjust to individual enthusiasm and fascination. Thus, the onus is on each member of the class to lead it in directions that will be most productive and enjoyable. Does that make sense to everybody? So, give me some direction. Okay, last week we looked briefly at this Longfellow poem. I thought it might be worthy of revisiting, but let's put that off until later. I think you all well, Raquel, you may not have seen it, but I just happened across this, and it's such a beautiful thing, and it bears so directly upon the use of language as we're talking about it here. What is the thrust of his poem? Would one of the three of you who read it like to give us a quick synopsis? And
I still haven't figured it out yet.
you haven't figured it out?
It's a little bit hard to explain. Kind of.
Well, this one's pretty straightforward. There's nothing really.
He's just talking pretty much about the wonders of being in the fireside in nature. The beauty of.
Very good. You've obviously got a feel for it. What does he conclude, though? He's concluding that the words of the poet that are coming through his book are more powerful to him than his own experience. He's saying at the end here, from them I learn whatever lies beneath each changing zone, and see, when looking with their eyes, better than with mine own. In other words, he's reading the works of others, and he's talking specifically of poetry, but presumably that means all kinds of other things. Let's do it. I'm sorry, it's just so good. I read it to you last time, but let's just look at it again here. The ceaseless rain is falling fast, and yonder gilded vane, immovable for 3 days past, points to the misty main. All right, it's dank weather. It drives me in upon myself, and to the fireside leans, to pleasant books that crowd my shelf, and still more pleasant dreams. I read whatever bards have sung of lands beyond the sea, and the bright days when I was young come thronging back to me. In fancy I can hear again the alpine torrents roar, the mule bells on the hills of Spain, the sea at Elsinore. I see the convent's gleaming wall rise from its groves of pine, and towers of old cathedrals tall, and castles on the Rhine. I journey on by park and spire, beneath centennial trees, fields with poppies all on fire, and gleams of distant seas. I fear no more. Now this takes a different direction here. I fear no more the dust and heat, no more I feel fatigue, while journeying with another's feet o'er many a lengthening league. In other words, he's journeying, but he's not getting tired because he's holding the journey in his hand. Let others traverse sea and land and toil through various climes. I turn the world round with my hand, reading these poets' rhymes. From them I learn whatever lies beneath each changing zone, and see, when looking through their eyes, better than with mine own. Okay, there's nothing obscure there about the meaning, isn't it? But of course, he is touting, he is exulting in the written word and explaining how it's so much more powerful even than perhaps direct experience. Though, of course, it's bringing back recollections of direct experience. You can't help thinking that at some point he has heard the donkey bells on the hills of Spain and heard the sea of Elsinore. Where's Elsinore? Okay, it of course is the castle where Hamlet takes place in Shakespeare. Helsingør, it's on the east coast of Denmark. Anyway, beautiful thing. Let's examine what you are reading and would like to explore, and that I invite you to look at the resources that we have in our classroom. Lots of full text books, audio books, activities generated in previous years. All of this you will find over here in this rather massive classroom. It's gone on for quite a long time. Unfortunately, I things up there. But then the last significant length of time, I'm not sure how long, I haven't had time to put them in their classifications. So all of this stuff at the bottom here is classified as well, somewhere up there is the classification is going on. Desultory, in other words, miscellaneous. All right. You're welcome to look at things there. Now, okay, that was the vocabulary list. We don't need that anymore. Let's go to here. I just hope this is adequately readable. Still there? Okay. Mouse isn't dead. It's only just reasonable, isn't it? Okay, this is an essay that I wanted to look at. There are many in here, and I haven't yet figured out exactly the best way to shoot them and make them available on the screen. I may figure out a better way to do it than this. Let's see how it goes. The devil can cite scripture for his purpose. This is following a prompt. This is an essay following a prompt. And the prompt is to say something about yourself. Specifically, I believe this one was choose 3 adjectives that describe you. And I may maybe think about it differently. Actually, this one is, I think, about the author is talking about trying to figure out what to put into the yearbook. Something that sort of sums him up, and sums him up for eternity and posterity, as well as for the moment. And it's his adumbrations, his maunderings in an attempt to find those words that best describe him. There was something else I wanted to cover here, and I can't figure out where it has disappeared to. I thought it was in the agenda, but I guess not. Okay.
There's more tabs to the right.
Well, let's see what I. Oh, that's just the debate topics. Let me just take a quick look and see if I can. Oh, it's gummed up on us. No, that's going to be the classroom itself. I'm sorry. Not responding in it. There we go. Okay. Let me just go back and make sure because okay, we skipped something here because when I hit the starting point, how much homework is enough, and in what direction should our reading, watching, listening go initially? And I do want to address those. I skipped forward to the homework section, and therefore I skipped this section here. Let's just take a quick look at it. Students in this class have evinced interest in a number of different writing styles. Some want to work on college edition essays, others on SAT essays, and nonfiction persuasive and informative material. These are wonderful goals. We will explore great writing in all these areas, but we do need to understand that skill in all of these requires mastery of formal English, to which we then add imagination, insight, research, analysis, and in some cases, the SAT, some gratuitous prolixity. Okay, I'm sure you all grabbed for your dictionaries. What does that mean?
Oh, I asked my dad about that, but I'm trying to remember how he explained it. I think it means like gibberish or.
Oh, it's not gibberish necessarily.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can't really remember how he explained it. I asked him what it was though.
Okay, now he's your dictionary, right?
Oh, my dad. Oh, wow.
No, I
He's really
understand.
good.
Well, that's good. And indeed, if he knows the word prolixity, more people know gratuitous, I think, but that would be relatively unusual. But prolixity is relatively simple meaning. It simply means wordy, overly
Oh yeah.
wordy.
Oh yeah. 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 That. Yeah. Okay.
And so gratuitous prolixity, well, that's almost redundant in that it's saying it's wordiness far beyond necessity. Okay, and of course that's exactly what you need in the SAT. We just determined that it's graded according to word count, so gratuitous prolixity is exactly what we need there. And if you throw in the words gratuitous prolixity right in the first paragraph where somebody might read it, it'll probably improve your score as well. So that, however, is not the kind of essay that you want to write if it's going to be read by someone who knows how to read essays and knows how to evaluate them well, as indeed the people who chose those 50 do. Okay, so the classroom examples here, we have looked at those, and we'll take back there and get it done. Let's just look a little bit at the content here. Can you read it? A little hard, isn't it? It's better on the small screen. But... All right, let's just see what he says. The devil can cite scripture for his purpose. Such was my attitude when I began the quest upon which all high school students must eventually embark. Now, when I started to read that sentence, I said, began the quest? The collocation to begin is not as comfortable as to embark upon a quest. That's more literary, it's more comfortable. So why did he use begin a quest? Well, it turns out that he ends up saying, I began the quest upon which all high school students must eventually embark. You can't use it twice. English does not allow that. You use the same word, especially an unusual word like that, twice in a sentence or even twice in a paragraph, and it sounds belabored and uncomfortable. Not all languages have that problem, but English doesn't like it. It's one of the reasons we have such a wealth of vocabulary in English. There's always another choice of word that you can use. Now, I began the quest upon which all high school students must eventually embark. This is a sentence with a good deal of character in it. He is linking concepts together intentionally and intelligently. We can always take one object and link it to another one by saying, with which he did that, upon which he did that, from whence he gathered the following. We can use that kind of wonderful linking. We'll see many different ways to do that, but it's usually something you don't see in freshman high school papers. This is somebody who has come across some good writing and knows how to do it, knows how to put more complex sentences together. Again, the quest upon which all high school students must eventually embark, the search for the perfect phrase to summarize their life to yearbook readers, now and 20 years hence. 20 years hence. Notice the language there. That's nicely chosen. Essentially, a yearbook quotation has to represent, quote, you. And here he's used a convention. I'm not even going to bother to worry about the period that goes inside the quotations here right now. It can be a summary of your views on life, liberty, and the pursuit of eggnog. Notice that he's not following that classic phrase with what you expect. He has put through something else. Now, what does eggnog have to do with it? Well, it turns out it doesn't really. It's get any explanation at all. It never explains why eggnog is interesting to him or fascinating, but he plants a seed and then ends up tying it in at the very end without any explanation. And sometimes not giving your readers an explanation is one of the better ways to get them to think a little bit further.
It would hook
And
them
it's a
up
wonderful
into-
device. It's a
Yes.
wonderful device. We'll see it again and again. Okay, now his use of the word you here, I take issue with, just because it tends to reduce the one should not, notice I say one, not you, but one should not use the second person when describing how to do something, particularly in scholarly journals. They don't want that. Use one, you can use students, you can use constituents, you can use any of many different terms, but try to avoid using personal pronouns, I, you. You see what I mean? Those are generally, they lower the tone somewhat, and they're not acceptable in many scholarly journals. Okay, is this after he mentions eggnog, it's difficult to find anyone quotable whose views on the subject coincide with mine. An interesting point, but it still doesn't tell you what his views on eggnog are, nor does he ever enlighten you. It can be a tribute to the unique and lasting friendships formed in high school. Now, notice here, he started this sentence right here. It can be a summary of your views on life, liberty, and the pursuit of eggnog. It's difficult to find anyone quotable whose views on the subject coincide with mine. Semicolon. It can be a tribute to the unique and lasting friendships formed in high school. This category of permissibly sappy quotations is best gleaned from popular songs and movies. It can be a sample of writing.
Okay, now I'll switch you up. So fast. Okay.
I keep forgetting to put a sign up there. Okay. Permissibly sappy quotations drawn from popular songs and movies. It can be a sample of writing noteworthy for its unique style. Tom Robbins on Diane Keaton. A smile that could ceiling, butter a blind man's waffles, and slush the accumulated frosts of Finland Station. Or for its source, an 8th grade teacher after learning my name 2 months into the course. You can't fool me anymore, I know who you are. Finally, and most attractively, it can be an irrelevant statement, funny in a reserved sort of way. To wit, Emerson's beware of endeavors which require new clothes. The more of these requirements an individual quotation satisfies, the better. Note, this is one sentence from there down to there. It's not a run-on sentence. It's a sentence with a number of different clauses in it, each of which contributes to this greater picture of all of the different categories into which that kind of a quote would fit, or all of the different requirements that that kind of a quote might fill. And you want to get that kind of thing in your ear, because that's really beautifully put. No one puts together a sentence that comfortably covers that much ground and does it cohesively without flaws and without mismatches, without having put a good deal of thought into language itself, or at least having acquired an intuitive mastery of the language. Does that make sense? And you look at this and you say, this is what set this fellow off from other essay writers. Okay, the more of these requirements an individual quotation satisfies, the better. Thus, I set forth on Yearbook 4 the search for schlock. Okay, that's something of a pun, something paronomastic. Where are your dictionaries? The word paronomastic simply means a pun, but it's a nice word to have on your, to have handy if you need it. The search for schlock, what is he doing there as far as punning is concerned? What is schlock? Okay, have you heard of the search for Spock?
Oh.
Okay,
Oh,
I
Star Trek?
suspect that that's a reference here.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
but the search for schlock, this is a
I get it. Star Trek 4, yeah.
right, very good. Schlock is drawn from a Yiddish source, and in fact, we see a number of references here to Jewish culture. And indeed, the name of the author clues one in also. This is probably someone from a Jewish background, which is interesting because I have a great deal of respect for the culture and its reverence for education, its reverence for scholarship. It's always been the case within Jewish society, and many of the great minds whose language we will study are indeed come from that culture. Okay. He goes on to other directions here, which are not really as impressive as that first part. I'll skip some of this, but I recommend that you read it. And he goes in to talk about Esquire magazine and Bob Dylan, and goes on about Bob Dylan in less than glowing terms, but then suddenly jumps into Shakespeare, and I couldn't help but look at that and say, if you can't find the perfect word yourself, then quote one. Don't plagiarize it, but quote it. Notice that that's what he starts to do in here, and he demonstrates a great deal of knowledge and a very eclectic understanding of literature. What does eclectic mean? Randomly drawn from many sources, not just from one. He quotes Shakespeare, he quotes Bob Dylan. You see what I mean? He jumps around. But
That's kind of like a huge, that's a big spectrum to
that's
go
a big
from Bob
spectrum.
Dylan
Now,
to...
Dylan was a remarkable poet, and he talks here about, he disparages Dylan. He doesn't want to admit to liking anything of Dylan's, which is interesting because Dylan did contribute an immense amount, but in very, very different ways than Shakespeare. And he goes on and to look at some others. This I found fascinating. Alternatively, you see where we are here? Alternatively, Shakespeare's words please me. The man that hath no music in himself is fit for treason's stratagems and spoils. Like me, the words are a little dramatic, a little offbeat. Oh, they are absolutely incredible. This is one of my favorite quotes from all of Shakespeare, though it's not my favorite play. And because it was quoted there, I'm afraid that takes us on a little bit of a tangent. I threw it in down here. This is a tangent having to do with music, which is something that's rather important to me. In fact, teaching or speaking music as a first language is the way I like to describe a music class. This is part, it's the very end part of a section from The Merchant Venice. Let's just take it, look at it here. Here's where we start. The man that hath no music in himself is not moved with concord of sweet sounds, is fit for treason's stratagems and spoils. The motions of his spirit are dull as night, and his affections dark as Aramis. Let no such man be trusted. Mark the music.
It's very interesting what you were saying about music speaking this language. There was this show my whole family watched. We watched it probably a few weeks ago. It's called Brain Games. And they tested language. It's very interesting because even though they made up a bunch of words, they said, "What do you think this is said in some Indian language?" They were making up the language. It was a piece of chocolate. So he said, "I think it should be that one." Everyone got it correct, even though it was wrong, because there was no language of that word. There's a way that the brain works with sounds, a way it expects it to hear. So like they were doing, for example, on twins, they had them talk to each other in their own little language. They said, it may just sound like nothing to you, but it's actually, if you listen to the musical notes that go through it, it goes perfectly onto the musical scale, the way that they're talking. So there's a very interesting correlation between language and sound with music, the way that language is presented.
I agree entirely, and it can take various different forms. In poetry, you find a good deal, but also simply in the choice of words to describe something. We find that those, in some cases, it's onomatopoeic, which you've probably heard. That is,
Yes.
the word itself in some way represents the thing that it's talking about. Find delightful ways in which one can convey so much more by using the right words than one can in any other way. And it really approaches music, and music does the same kind of a thing from a very different direction. Very good point. Okay, that's the conclusion of something that starts up here, but I think this is really a remarkable thing, and I just wanted to share it with you because the language is so wonderful. This is Lorenzo, who is courting Jessica, who's the daughter of Shylock. Sit, Jessica, look how the floor of heaven is thick inlaid with patterns of bright gold. There's not the smallest orb which thou beholdest, but in his motion like an angel sings, still choiring to the young-eyed cherubims, such harmony is in immortal souls. But whilst this muddy vesture of decay doth grossly close it in, we cannot hear it. Where did these words and where did these ideas come from? Shakespeare comes up with some absolutely amazing things. And this is at a time when he's talking about these orbs in the sky, when it was not clear at all that there were orbs. In fact, during Shakespeare's lifetime, Giordano Bruno, who was preaching that those stars out there are actually suns with their own solar systems. He was burned to death at the stake for having said so. And this was during Shakespeare's lifetime, so this is really a remarkable bit of insight at it historically. Okay, so he finishes this up. Let me see if there's material at the end here that we're looking at. Yes, I think there is. He quotes from a number of different sources. Find quotes yourself that you would like to use. You'll find quotes in the material that I present here, and I hope we'll go out and look for our own, and when you find it, please share it with the rest of the class, that you may be able to put into a catalog, but put into a database that you can then draw from when you're writing later on. Okay. My wit, too, is somewhat skewed. Skewed is a nice word. It's one that everybody understands, everybody knows, but it isn't that commonly used, and it has a very specific meaning. In fact, a fact which provides me with frequent pride and frequent humiliation, but rarely embarrassment. The language here, the structure, is much, much better than the content. Can you think of a situation that involves humiliation but without embarrassment? I'm sorry, but that seems to me like a contradiction in terms.
That's what I was saying. It's like, wait,
That's an
those are linked.
oxymoron.
Yeah.
You understand the word oxymoron? You got that?
Words
Very
that
good.
are opposites.
Exactly.
Yeah. You say it
Got
one
two
way.
things
Yeah.
that conflict
Two things
with each
conflict
other.
with each other.
Right. Now, he's used an oxymoron here, but it doesn't matter, because really what he's talking about is not important, is how he's saying it. In this arena, I look to a man who is certainly as strange as I. Now, this is important to understand. You will find, even among the great speakers, some who will say, this is, how does he put it? Certainly as strange as me. You will find great speakers saying that. Strictly speaking, it is wrong, and he gets it right. Now, does anybody remember what that construct is called? In the book, I call it an elliptical construct, which is a strange thing to call it, and indeed, it's not the first time it's been called that, but it describes it very well. An ellipsis is something that's omitted. An ellipsis is something that's left out. And what is really going on here is, I look to a man who is certainly as strange as I am. The am is what's omitted. The am isn't there. But it lets you know clearly that it should be as strange as I, rather than as strange as me. Does that make sense? Okay, it's called an elliptical reference, and as is the case with a number of different errors, either real errors or non-errors, and we'll talk about both of those, the choice flavors the reception you're going to get from your audience. You get it right. Some people will regard you as simply too dogmatic and hidebound in your use of language. Others will recognize the fact that you got it right and understand that it is in fact right. So you have to make that kind of choice depending on your audience. The impression I have, and I certainly feel this to be the case, is you're never going to be wrong writing for an admissions officer, for example, and getting it right. You see what I mean? If you get it wrong, in a lot of cases with non-errors, it doesn't really matter very much. But we might as well get it right, because an admissions officer is going to be able to tell the difference. Okay, as strange as I. If much funnier and better paid, Woody Allen, in one of his best lines, explains that the true test of maturity is not how old you are, but how you react to awakening in Midtown area in your shorts. Woody Allen said a lot of other, I think, much more poignant things than that, but put that aside for the time being. Also, Steve Martin exhorts musically, be obsequious, purple, and clairvoyant. Be pompous, obese, and eat cactus. Criticize things you don't know about. Be oblong and have your knees removed. What odd images this brings to mind. My kind of guy. I cannot resist once more. Let's look at that for a second before we go on. Okay, Steve Martin, I've never really thought much of. And this doesn't really make me think much more of him, but he uses some interesting words, or misuses them, because those words have nothing to do with our context. What does obsequious mean?
It's like on the tip of my tongue.
Do you want the answer?
Yeah, I can't think of it.
Overly deferential. Someone who is a toady. Someone who is who defers entirely to another person, and treats another person as being in a position of lordship. Obsequiousness. One who displays fealty to someone else. We'll look that one up. Fealty. Okay. wonderful word there, but it has nothing to do with anything else as far as we can tell. This is purple, we all know. What's clairvoyant? It's the supposed psychic ability to see things that aren't there, to see beyond what's in the physical world. Okay. Be pompous, obese, eat cactus. Why? I don't know. Criticize things you don't know about. Well, this is something an awful lot of people do. Be oblong and have knees removed. I have no idea. He just sort of off in all directions here, but pulling out interesting images to throw at his audience. Okay, and then this last one, which is perhaps close to being beyond the pale for an English class. So brilliant it puts the strings of puns I trade with my friends to shame. When asked to use the word horticulture in a sentence, Dorothy Parker responded, "You can read a horticulture, but you can't make her think." I'll leave that one for you folks to figure out. Talk about paranomasis. Okay. As for my friends, finding the right quotation is crucial. I take my friends very seriously, which is more than they can say about me. So I'll allow myself a serious quotation, preceded by an anonymous, "Life is just one big joke to you guys, isn't it?" courtesy of Bruce Springsteen. Sounds cramea. If you're going to say ungrammatical, you might as well say it in French, and see if you can impress the reader. There ain't nobody, nowhere, no how going to understand me the way you did. Notice he puts it in quotes, makes it very clear that he knows it's ungrammatical, and yet ungrammatical things can be extremely poignant. Finally, I can only approximate my views of life, liberty, and the pursuit of eggnog with a collection of a few quotations from Midsummer Night's Dream. Things do best please me that befall preposterously. Who says that in Midsummer Night's Dream? Anybody?
I haven't read any Shakespeare, so we're going to read them this year.
I'm rather hoping we'll read some of it in here. You want to?
Yeah.
Okay, that's Puck, of course, in Midsummer Night's Dream. And from the wild things, where the wild things are, this is wonderful. He draws in totally different directions. Let the wild rumpus start. And finally, an unattributed tribute. Unattributed tribute? Isn't that a wonder? He's not really repeating a word because those two words from the same root have totally different meanings. Unattributed tribute to the wondrous world we live in. And the eggnog isn't even sour yet. No explanation for that. As far as I can tell, we have no idea where he's going with that, where he's coming from, whether he likes eggnog, and what it has to do with getting sour, except perhaps the summer is hot.
It sounds like he just really likes eggnog.
So, but I think this demonstrates specifically that the language is more important than the content. And I think we'll find that in more of these. I'm tempted to go through and look at more of them. As I said, I picked this up in a bookstore, and I was just enthralled by some of the essays in here. They are delightful. They're wonderful use of language, and I wish I could find something like this in machine-readable form so we put it up here and look at it in an easier way. Okay. Any questions at all about this? Okay. Again, I think one of the best ways to acquire language, oh my goodness, is to hear it. I've just looked at the clock.
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
I can't believe we've done that to the time. Okay. One of the best ways to acquire language is to listen to it. And we really want to find sources that demonstrate it well. Now, I haven't given you a lot of assignments. Let's see if we can get it to respond to us here. Here we go. I haven't given you a lot of assignments here. These are the high priority assignments I gave you so far. And again, generally I'll probably end up giving you more assignments than you find are within your capacity to do during the week. That's okay, but I want to know what that capacity is. And at the end, notice. Please let me know if you need more homework. I'd be happy to try to find some more and put it up there. Okay. I'm serious about that. If you find yourself something like, I want more of this, let me know. Okay. Let's look briefly, and it will have to be briefly, unfortunately, at debate topics. Now, there are some remarkable debates that I would like to introduce you to, perhaps online. And Dawson, maybe you remember your favorites from last year and could recommend one or more that you think would be particularly appropriate, but you put some thought into it. Let's look at some of these debate topics. This could take us for an entire class, going through and looking at give me 1 point for this one, give me 1 point against this one, and then we'll go on to the next one, you see. And let's just see what we can do. These are suggested high school topics, and then we have suggested college topics. They're not really that different. Funny debate topics, and try and see both sides of an issue. This is an interesting one, too. Try to take the side of an argument that is far less common and perhaps more difficult to justify. And that's a good one to practice with. Let's just look at the high school ones for a moment here. And please look at these on your own and see if there's anything there really appeals. Animal testing justified? Death penalty appropriate under any circumstances? Should it be banned? Should cell phones be used during class? That's an interesting one. Any thoughts on that?
It depends on the use, because if you allow everyone to use phones, then they're not going to be paying attention to class. But then one could also argue that you could use it, for example, a dictionary, or you can use it to look up research. Mm-hmm. You know, you kind of see, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Exactly.
It's very hard to think about. It all depends on the way you use it, I guess.
Good point. I think that the conclusion perhaps that one has to draw is, in any kind of a class, you want to be polite, you want to be considerate. I mean, this is a fundamental assumption that we are undertaking when we're dealing with people in general, and certainly dealing with people in higher education. And in fact, I want to go into that in a moment. But saying that you shouldn't have a phone in class is a lot like saying no pencils, no paper. It's just a medium. What you do with that medium is what determines whether it's of value or not. And indeed, if you're playing games on or texting to your girlfriend or something or other, this is impolite. This is inappropriate. But then whistling or singing a tune while someone is trying to speak to you is also inappropriate. You don't even need a phone for that. You see what I mean? So I feel so often we are trapped in ancient and even atavistic, where are your dictionaries? Assumptions, a throwback to an earlier period. For some reason, people think that books are more valuable than film. That depends entirely on what the book's about and what the film is about. It's a different medium. And film, especially for our auditory purposes, for language acquisition, is perhaps much more useful than the printed page. And so when we look in our classroom, you'll find an awful lot of videos and audio. And I think those are just as important. strange, and it's really a rather perverse assumption that that is based on 19th century technology. Do you see my point? Should laptops be allowed in classrooms? Same issue. Is global warming an issue? Quick argument on either side of that one?
No, because the person who came up with global warming actually got everybody scared because they just got a part of the graph.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly
It's all
what I was
just a
saying.
hoax.
The graph that they took it from was starting from the medieval age, which was very hot, like it is now, and then it goes like this in a curve, like a little pattern. But the guy who started it as a joke decided to slice it off to make it look like the data was going up and up and up and up and without stopping. And then some people took it seriously, and then they put a whole research crew in it, and then, you know, I'm not saying that they're making up the data, but they would exaggerate data of, see, look at it now, look at how high it's gone now. And a lot of times it's just the cause of the Earth. The Earth naturally goes through periods of being warmer to colder, you know, like the Ice Age. Now it's going to get hotter, and then it's eventually going to go back to the Ice Age again. We don't know when, though.
Okay, does anybody have an argument on the other side?
No. I don't
That's
know.
interesting, because most of the world's on the other side of this one.
Most people don't like do research on it. They just take they listen to
What
like
about-
what someone says.
See if you can avoid the likes.
Yeah. But if you research, it's pretty clear. In fact, I remember reading an article. I kind of laughed at it. Like there was a ship of people who went up to went up to Alaska to study like global warming on like the icebergs. And while they're on it, apparently there's too much ice. Supposed to be melted ice, but it wasn't, and they got trapped because the ground froze.
Because there was so much ice.
It was so cold.
They were
and
going
so
there to
much
prove
ice.
that the ice was melting, and when they came, there was too much ice for them to do any research.
No, because it was estimated. They said there shouldn't be any ice in this area. When they came, they got trapped because icebergs
Came
surrounded
right in
their
between
ship.
them.
Well, do you know when they went there?
I
No.
read that article like a month or two.
Yeah, well, I mean, that doesn't really necessarily mean anything, though.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying. I just found it kind of funny. People trying to study global warming, saying it's true, going to Alaska, and then they end up
End up
location
getting
they
trapped by
thought
the
didn't
ice.
have icebergs, and there were new icebergs that trapped them.
Yeah, well, if they were up there during the winter or something,
Yeah, that's true. True too.
or
Yeah.
in early spring.
Yeah, I think they probably went in the winter because they're going to see, watch, we're going to go in winter and we're going to show you that there are no icebergs left because we melted it all. And they come and the icebergs trap them.
I think it's just
Actually,
phases of
studies
the Earth.
have shown that icebergs have.
Yeah, there is. I would
Just
agree
like in
that
the
there is
future
a
they might come
global.
back.
There is the
Yeah,
Earth
yeah,
is
eventually will.
definitely warming, but it's
maybe
not.
10,000 years from now.
I don't think the global warming is a cause of us humans. We may be a tiny factor to it, but the world.
Factor.
Yeah, we're just a little factor. But the Earth itself will always switch. They
Yeah.
will always move from a phase of being colder to warmer. You know.
Yeah, well, I mean, 10,000 years from now, we could be in another ice age.
That
But
would
yeah,
be-
right now we're in a warm period. But I would say that humans do have a large effect on the environment. But yeah, we're
Yeah.
just kind of helping it warm faster, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say.
Interesting. No, I'm sorry. I need to shut up so that I can hear what's going on here, and it tells me some of the directions we need to go in. A few of the things I'd like to work on. Try just a little bit to improve your language as you're speaking. Avoid likes if you can, and I don't like interrupting in the middle of things, but I really would like to address some of the things which we could fix so easily and could improve things so immensely.
We should have like a little shock collar on our necks, and then someone interrupts.
We can have a little flag that you okay. Just broke Synesis error. Subject-verb mismatch. We'll play with different ways to do it. Does anybody have an argument on the other side of this? Well, one of the interesting points is you've got scientists on both sides to some extent, although the preponderance is on one side. But regardless of what the science is, and regardless of whether indeed we are on a slippery slope towards becoming like Venus, which many scientists believe, one argument I heard from one of my favorite speakers is we don't have another Earth to try it on. In other words, is it suppose it's at a 90% probability that we're right. It's really just something that's going to vacillate. Do we want to take that 10% chance or not? Because we don't have another Earth to test it on. It's an interesting point. Anyway, we want to be able to see things from both sides if we can at all. Please look at these. I was thinking we might be able to go down them a little bit more, and perhaps next week we should. But let's now determine what direction we'd like to go for next week. First of all, assignments. Again, assignments are advisory. I want to give you as much as you need and in as many directions as you find worthwhile. But need some help from you in determining what those directions are. Dawson, I'm afraid I'm going to keep this because I'm going to look at more of the things in here and work on them, but I'd recommend you might like to acquire this book, and as I said, it's very inexpensive. I don't know. I'll ask if they have it in the store here, but in case on Amazon.
All right.
Almost everything else we're using in class, I can find somewhere and put online for you, but not this one. Please post in the classroom, and if you have any difficulty getting into the classroom, let me know and I'll straighten that out. Did you get the email that gave you ID and password for the login?
I actually don't know. I recently wasn't able to access the internet because I got it taken away. And
Okay. Would you have erased it, or do you?
No,
do
no one
send
went on it, and so by the time I came back, I was just piled with emails. So,
That's the way that works.
so
I'd be glad to send it again if you need it, and let me know if you have any trouble logging in. Okay. And what I'd like to assign for next time is do the high priority assignments as I've lined them up there if you haven't already done them, and I believe you folks have done all those I gave you this first week, for which I congratulate you. And please post something for next week. It doesn't have to be more than just a couple of words in a vocabulary journal. I just want to see that everybody's figured out how to do a posting. And I already know that one of you, probably both, has, and of course Dawson knows what he's doing. If you have any trouble with it, please let me know, just so we can cover bases there. And I want to determine, it was on the agenda, what you're reading now and what sort of direction you might like to go in as far as reading is concerned. I tend to gravitate towards Shakespeare.
Shakespeare's.
Okay, it is just absolutely wonderful stuff, and I mean all of English literature. I mean, English literature existed before Shakespeare, but everything since has been heavily influenced by Shakespeare. It's just that immense concentration of creativity that came through at his time. It's very much like what Bach did with music. And so let's look at one of those plays. Any thoughts, Dustin? I don't remember which we went through last year. The previous year we did 5 plays, but last year I think we only did 3.
Yeah, we did. I think it was Hamlet. We also did Henry V.
Right.
And I think it was Twelfth Night.
Yeah, you're right. These are wonderful, fairly accessible plays. Perhaps Henry V a little less so than Hamlet is the big one, his magnum opus, and that's always worth doing. But perhaps next week we should do a little bit of synopsis so we can decide on which one to do. Do you have any specific desires at this point?
No, I'm open to them, to any of them.
Okay, let's just go through some of the other big ones. You all read Jane Austen, I suppose. We did Pride and Prejudice last year.
My sister's reading that right now.
I'm reading that right now.
Oh, good for you. Good
Are
for
you
you.
part of the British literature?
Yes,
You're
my
probably
sister.
yeah. My sister's in that too. So that's probably why she's that's why she's reading the Jane Austen.
I looked at the list of things in English literature, and in fact, that's sort of the basis, the little core that we can expand upon. There's a great deal more, and when it comes to language, there's a lot of things that we can do to expand upon that as well. Let's see what I want to determine what to add for homework for this week.
Will you ever want us to write essays? Or?
Well, I'm sorry, you missed last week, and I should have covered that material again. I didn't talk about it today because we talked about it last time. Let's do that very quickly. I've been pushed into having, where is it?
Writer's form.
Not so much. I'm looking for my grading.
What's a grading policy?
Grading policy. Where is it? There it is. There it is. Yes. I've been pushed into doing grades. I don't like the idea of doing grades, and in general, I don't like the idea of giving anything but an A. So I tend to give A's and redefine the class depending on how people did it. But this is officially our grading policy, based entirely on the number of projects, number of acceptable projects handed in. And 12 for an A, 9 for a B, 6 for a C, 3 for a D for each semester. Now those projects can be anything. They can be something written, they can be a poem, they can be a recitation, they can be participation in a debate. So and anything that requires some effort and some skill and results in some improvement is really a big one that I'm looking for. I'm sorry, I did that last week and I should have repeated for you. So in other words, hand something in. And I'd really like to see a little bit of writing from everyone so I can tell what your writing is. I have some idea what your speech is like. And I'd like you to listen to some really good speech and just see what you can do to let it just flow through your speech centers and see what it can do to the dreadful colloquialisms that they're not nearly as bad in you folks as they are in most public school students. But still, you haven't heard a great deal of good language, and you need to hear it and let it have its effect. Does that make sense? Okay, any questions? I don't know if there's anybody who would benefit from the class. Please share information about it, and I will put something together for assignments and send it out in the next day or two, just so that we have something to work on. If you have any suggestions, by all means, post them, and we'll follow up on those. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Tichenal, if you really like films, I know one of my family's favorites is for a great script and great acting is a movie called A Man for All Seasons.
That's one of the great classics.
My dad just showed it to me this year. It was really good.
Yeah, that's certainly the case, and we can find some more that are very much like that if you'd like.
Yes,
Okay,
my dad never showed to me. He said, "You won't appreciate how well the language in the script is unless you're a little bit older. You won't,
I don't know that that's necessarily true.
I know, but he said he was shown to that age. So he said it's better that when you're older you can conflict and everything. Because like when we were little, my dad never showed us.
It can
this.
certainly go over the head of those who are not ready for it.
Yeah.
But you can't base that entirely on age. It depends on experience. It depends on how much one has done up to that point.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Mr. Dictionary.
Have a good week.
You too.